Welcome to Impact the World, the show for and about creatives, changemakers, and entrepreneurs. This is a conversation episode where a special guest shares with me what they are creating and the behind-the-scenes journey of their experience. Welcome to Impact the World, and my guest this week is Dee Wallace. Many of you may know Dee for her work in acting. The movie that I first saw Dee in was E.T., and she plays Elliot's mom, but Dee is also a huge figure in the world of horror movies, being in some very big horror movies, and she said that she's done over 50 horror movies in her career. Not only does she have a wealth of film and television credits, she also is someone who has been channeling for several decades now and working through her teaching to bring to people principles of conscious creation in life and finding and learning about more happiness. So we have a discussion about all of those topics and also touch on some elements of Dee's personal life that both taught her and led to the work that she is doing today. So it's a great conversation and we hope you enjoy. If you are a fan of the show, we really appreciate it if you subscribe on YouTube, or if you're listening either on Apple Podcasts or some other service, if you're able to subscribe, rate or review, it really helps us reach more people. So thank you. But for now, here is my conversation with Dee, and links to her website, iamdeewallace.com, can also be found in the show notes underneath this video or audio. Dee, thank you so much for being here. It's lovely to have you here in studio because we met, I think, first in 2008. And then we both...
That just shocks me.
I know. And then 2011, we were both speakers for the Crimson Circle. And that's when I got to sit and have dinner with you. And you've been in my life since I was about 7 years old, which is probably true for everybody because... You know, E.T. was the movie of yours that I saw first, and we know that movie...
I hear that a lot, Lee.
I'm sure. Yeah, and you were Elliot's mom, and so I remember as a little kid, you were a mother figure on the screen in my life, so it's a treat.
Yes, I was the mother figure that everybody wanted because I never knew what was going on in my own home. I could get away with anything in her house.
Well, I know that your work in teaching and bringing spirituality to people has been very, very important over the last few decades. But perhaps we could start with the acting, because you have so many film and television credits. It's unbelievable. And acting for you, I'm guessing, is a very spiritual practice.
Yeah.
I mean, E.T. is such a spiritual movie.
Well, it's interesting. I found a man named Charles Conrad who taught me a technique that nobody else was teaching back then. He taught us not to think, not to break down things, not to figure out all those things that you learn in college and other acting classes. He taught us to get our energy super, super high and throw it all onto the other person. And what that does is it opens up a channel. Well, years later, when I actually knew I was channeling and was doing it on purpose, I went, oh my gosh, I've been doing this in my acting all my career. And I never really knew it. And that's still how I approach a role. That's how I did E.T., that I just get my energy up, throw it onto whomever or whatever I'm working with, and allow Mary or whoever it is to come through me. So I don't ever question the choice. And that, I think, is where the acting and the healing maybe departs, because I know the first thing in manifestation and creating your life is you have to choose. You have to consciously choose what you want, right? So the character from the script already knows exactly what they want. So I didn't have to explore that in my acting. And that was freedom for me. That opened up so much creativity. It was funny, this weekend, I was back east hosting a screening of Cujo on the big screen, and I hadn't seen it on the big screen in a long time. And I thought, I didn't figure any of that stuff out. I was just there in the moment doing what Donna would do to save her kid. And I think if we all lived more like that and got out of our minds and into our hearts, life would be delivered to us more.
Well, and you mentioned Cujo, and I know that you have this enormous career in horror movies and scary movies, and you're very beloved by that community for all of these roles you've done. And the parallel to me between the fact that you're in these scary movies that get our fear going, and then you're doing all this spiritual work as to how we can move beyond our fear and be more empowered. There's something beautiful about the mirroring of those two.
Absolutely. I jokingly say I spend half of my time doing horror films and half of my life teaching people how to heal themselves from fear. But, there isn't a monster I've ever worked opposite to that is more frightening than myself and my own fears and my former lack of being able to, there's that word again, choose, not to be angry, not to be in fear, I come from a very challenging childhood. My father was a severe alcoholic, and every night of my life growing up, I watched him totally nude and drunk, berating my mother, emotionally abusing her. I never saw him hit her, but the abuse, and I was trying to take care of my little brother and keep my dad off my mom, and finally, my mom couldn't take it anymore, and she moved us out of the house, and 2 months later, he shot himself in the head behind a bar. So, and that's one of my stories. Yeah. But if I keep telling my story and telling everybody, look at what a victim I am, where I came from, this is why I can't, and this is why I can't, and you didn't have that happen to you, well, then I never create my life the way I want it to be. If we keep telling our stories, I love Dana Wilde's quote. She says, the only thing wrong with your story is that you keep telling it. And it's true, because that defines who you are. That this is who I am. I am either Dee Wallace, who was a victim of my childhood, or I am Dee Wallace, who is a victor over my childhood. And I can keep blaming my mom and dad. They're not even here anymore. What are they going to, it's my responsibility now to move past that.
Yeah, and it's interesting hearing you frame that in your early life, because one of the things that I'm struck by with you and your life is in a career, and we're just talking about the acting here for a second, in a career where very few people are able to make an acting career work, you have just had this incredible run So at what point did your ability to know that we consciously create, because I'm guessing that you didn't have your spiritual awakening in your very, very early years, or was that there for you as you started to
I
build
was
the act?
channeling
Yeah.
really early in life, but every kid does. You know, they're imaginary friends. And I had a friend adopt a little boy, and he was 4 years old, and they were driving, and they came to a stop sign, and there was a big semi truck across the street, and he went, "Look at that truck, Mommy, that's how I died last time." And proceeded to tell her, you know, he was in the car with his other mommy. You know, kids always channel until we tell them it's not okay, they don't know, and it's just pretend, right? So when I was 8 years old, I was very close to my grandmother because my mom had to work all the time. And I woke up at around 3 a.m. and I heard this voice say, "Something's wrong at Grandma's house." Well, I got up and I went and woke my mom up. My poor mom, she had to go to work at 7 a.m. in the morning. And I said, "Mommy, something's wrong at Grandma's house." And God love her, she didn't say, "Oh, shut up and go back to bed." She got up and we called Grandma and nobody answered. So at 3 a.m., we drove over to Grandma's house. And the cat had gotten up on the stove and turned all the burners on. But they hadn't lit, so it was filling up with gas. I don't know if she would have been okay in the morning, but the point is there was something wrong at Grandma's house, right? Then we moved in with Grandma, and she lived on the top floor, she and Grandpa, and we lived on the bottom floor. And there were these long stairs up to my bedroom on the sleeping porch upstairs. And I would sit there to talk on the phone, you know, like teenagers do. And I would hear this voice saying, "Help me. Will you help me?" Now, it's very interesting because when I hear these voices, I don't get afraid. In the movies, I would get afraid. That's the difference. When it's real, it's peaceful. And I said, "Well, why don't you just leave and then you won't be afraid? You can leave, you know. I think at the time I said, you can go up to heaven. You can leave." And then I never heard the voice again. After my dad's suicide, I was laying in my room, and there were windows on all sides, and I was laying on my side, and there's a mirror over here, and there was this really bright light, and I thought, well, didn't I pull the curtains down or something? And all the curtains were down, and I looked back, and the light went to the middle of the room, and I heard, "It's not your fault. You couldn't have done anything to stop me or help me. Your job is to move forward with your life and go be happy. Go be happy, Dee Dee," which is what they called me. "Go be happy. That's your job." And then the light went back to the mirror and disappeared. So I had a lot of experiences when I was younger. I just didn't know you could expand them. And then I met my husband, and he got me involved in a philosophy called conceptology. And we would go down and study it down near Disneyland once or twice a month. And it just made so much sense to me. And then I was led to science of mind, which is your thoughts create your life. And then my husband died, and I dropped to my knees and I said to God, "I don't want to be pissed off, and I don't want to be a victim. I want a way we can heal ourselves. And, ask and it's given to you. So I got my message like that. Use the light within you to heal yourself. And I've been expanding on understanding that ever since.
Wow. And how old were you at that point?
I was, when Chris died, I was about 40.
Right. So, in a way, that marked...
No, I was, 46.
46.
Because Gabrielle was just before her 7th birthday.
Your daughter, right. So that kind of marked, in a way, the beginning of this chapter of your life that I met you in, where you are a teacher, a speaker, and a spiritual leader for others, as well as your own healing journey. So how long did it take for your own personal healing journey to start to become something that you shared with others in a more overt way?
Like immediately, because I had an acting studio that I'd started. And after I dropped to my knees and said that, I would go in and people would start scenes and I would start getting messages where their blocks were, which is kind of my specialty now. When I do private sessions, I'm able to tell you where your blocks are and what limiting beliefs are lurking there that are holding you back. I mean, I would have 6 auditors, Lee, and at the end of the class, 3 of them would go, I will do anything to study with you, anything. And the other 3 would go, hey, nice, thanks, bye. Because it got kind of freaky for people. But my students' lives started to change. And then their parents worked with me, and then their families and their friends. And here I am, 30-some years later, working with people all over the world.
It's amazing. And it's funny because as a kid, when I ended up going to drama school in England, but I didn't stay trying to be in the profession for more than a few years because everything else consumed me and I got taken elsewhere. But I always used to feel like, when I look back at my life, all the theatre I did, all the drama classes, all the workshops, they were my first self-growth workshops.
Yes.
They just weren't under that heading. So I love that you were able to really run with that and kind of empower that into your acting studio.
Yeah, 18 years later, it was one of the largest acting studios in LA, but I couldn't sell it because everybody wanted the healing stuff along with the acting stuff. And nobody else could do it. Nobody else knew how to do that.
Was it, because you're still very active as an actor all of the time. So I've wondered about that for you. Have you found, when you're working on TV or film sets, the people who know about the spiritual side of you, do they come up to talk about?
It's crazy.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It's crazy who you attract without ever really holding that intention, Somehow it'll come up in the conversation, like the Hallmark film, Christmas film that I have coming out soon in November.
So it will be out by the time this interview
airs,
yeah.
Yeah. I had a whole healing session with like 7 of the people on the crew and the cast that found out about my work, and they were all into bettering themselves and some kind of self-help thing. And so we had a little healing circle for 2 hours, which was great. I mean, I could do my healing work 24/7. I couldn't do my acting work 24/7.
Because the energy is the energy current that runs through you is different?
I don't think I ever had that question before. And what I'm feeling is the highest answer is that it's the interaction. I'm interacting with another actor, but I'm interacting in an emotional way as opposed to a detached way through the channel. And it's very different.
Well, you also, I guess, with TV movies, you also have the parameters of the script, the story. Those things are set, and your job is to bring that, infuse that with life force and
Yes.
a new energy. But there's a parameter, whereas with the healing work, I guess the parameter is being created every moment through,
Right.
your own way of being the conduit.
Well, and in acting, I have to bring all of me forward. In the healing, I get out of the way.
I get that.
And just let the channel take over.
I get that. Yeah.
It's pure faith and trust and freedom.
So we were talking earlier that by the time this airs, your book, Born, will have just come out. Tell us what you can about Born and why you created it.
I created it because I work with thousands of people, and they all think it's hard, Lee. They all think creating is hard. They think there's a struggle in it. They think they have to study for a long time to do it, and it's just not true. There are a very few principles that you need to get in place, and then ask the universe to partner with you. The most important thing is to love everything you want. And most of us are taught the opposite. We're taught to judge what we don't have and be pissed off or feel like a victim or angry that we don't have it or depressed that we don't have it. And none of that's going to create it for you. I mean, when you walk into a room full of people, who do you gravitate to? The people who are doing this or the people who are doing this?
Totally.
Right? Well, the universe is the same way. It's a big electromagnetic field that we plug into. And it says very clearly in the I Am discourses, God, or if that word is not your word, the force, the creative force, the energy, whatever your term is, it doesn't matter, will not and cannot intercede on your behalf without your clear direction. Now, if you put that together with what brain science says, which is your brain focuses on whatever statements you make. So if you tell a little 3-year-old, don't touch the TV, he'll go right over and touch that TV because his brain doesn't hear don't. His brain sees him touching the TV. I can have people come up to me when I'm speaking and I'll go, okay, what do you want? I don't want to have to worry about money. What do you want? I don't want to have to worry about money all the time. Okay, good. What do you want? This will go on for 20 minutes until they get so frustrated with me. I want more money. And I go, great. Now we can start because now you finally told me what you want. But we're not taught that. We're taught when we're little, I want a doll. Don't ask for what you want. You'll be lucky to get whatever, you know. I want that toy that Johnny has. No, Johnny has it. You let him have your toy, right? We're taught not to be self-creators. And that, well, God will love you more if you're humble and you don't have very much. That was my big message. You shouldn't have more than you need, Dee Dee. You know? And I even remember the intonation. They're the rich people. We're the good people. So, cut to me in E.T., and I'm catapulted to stardom and getting all these financial offers, and my little girl inside is going, no, don't do that. God won't like you. You won't be humble anymore. You're making too much money, Deanna. But we don't understand that all that's going on within us. Do you know that how you see yourself in the world and your self-esteem and how you're accepted in the world is totally complete in your brain by 8 years old? 8 years old. So we're not running the show. Our kids inside are running the show. And that's why I tell everybody, whatever subject you're working on, make a list of everything that you were verbally taught and what was modeled in front of you. Because you will find every block that's in your way.
It's funny, I'd heard that about 8 years old many years ago, but you just reminded me, because that was the year really in my life when all my problems started to surface, like 8 years old onwards. Problems that I kind of ran for, I don't know, 9 years and started to break some of the patterns and started the heal journey, which was long, around the age of 16, 17. But it's interesting to piece that thread together, that for me, 8 years old was where certain behaviors started that were problematic.
Well, and then what happens, you see, is that's a belief. We know from the good book, as you believe, it's going to be delivered to you, baby, right? So if you want to change your life, you have to change your belief systems. What happens is we create all these belief systems up to 8 years old, and then we start building on those beliefs. So by the time we're 20, 30, 40, we have a lifetime which proves our beliefs to us. But we have created that proof because we have that belief system. I mean, for example, when I was growing up, my grandfather, who had been terribly successful in business, had a stroke. So my vision of him was that he was helpless and my grandmother had to take care of him all the time. My father was an alcoholic. My mother had to take care of him all the time. She had to make the living. So 4 of my husbands, who had to take care of him?
Right.
Until I went, holy heck, I'm living my mother's story. I'm not living mine.
Well, and you just talked about the success moment that you had around E.T. and how that triggered for you this inability to let yourself receive some of the things that were coming your way. That must have been a very strange time, because I can't imagine that you anticipated that film was going to do what it did and cause such a shift in culture and also in your life. Or did you have a sense that the movie that you were working on had something that was going to explode like?
Well, I knew when I read the script, my very words to my agent when I read it was, I don't think it's going to do much for me, but I think it's going to do a lot for the world. So I got from Melissa Matheson's script immediately the soul of E.T. But you never know, ever, that something's going to be a hit. You just don't. And no creative person ever goes in going, oh, we're going to make a mega $1 million blockbuster hit that's going to last forever. You just don't. You go in to do your best work and be the best creative person you can be. So I I really didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why I was pulling back from everything. Thank God I had the beginning of this work so I could begin to understand it. But you see, then that's another place that my story and my modeling started to play out so that I would have more proof, right,
Yes.
of really what didn't have to be a reality in my life at all.
Well, and you said you told your agent that this won't do much for me, but I can see that it's going to be good for the world. What was it? What made you feel that about it? Do you mean?
Because I knew the star was E.T.
Ah, I see. Okay.
I knew it was all about him, and I was right.
But I haven't seen him in many other movies since. And Dee, you've got lots of credits.
Oh, that was brilliant.
So maybe he, maybe it was a fluke for him in that movie.
Yeah. But, he's a part of our culture.
Completely. But then and again, I mean, this is the power of our media, and when something
Yes.
imprints. When I first met you, I get all these feelings about you that are, it's Elliot's mom. You get that. So isn't it interesting, the power of that? And I've often wondered what it's like for people like yourself who are heavily associated with zeitgeisty moments like that forever. But it's interesting to hear for you what the challenge was afterwards. And I can also imagine at that time, because we're talking 40 years ago, I can imagine navigating Hollywood as an actress at that time would have had all kinds of tricky elements to it as well.
I think navigating life
Right.
has a lot of tricky elements to it. But what was challenging for me was I was the girl next door from Kansas. I was the simple girl next door. That's still who I am. When I started channeling, I said to the channel, why me? Why should I be given this information? And they said, because you have a way to tell it so that people can understand it. That was exactly what the answer was, which is, again, why I wrote Born. I made it simple. I made it fun. I made it accessible. I tell lots of stories in it from my clients and myself. And there's really just a few things that you need to get into alignment in order to start changing your life. It's really simple, but we've been, first of all, taught that we can't do it. I mean, let's just go back to our major religions, and the major one being Catholicism in the beginning. We couldn't even talk to God. We had to talk to God through somebody else. We didn't even have the right or the power to do that. And I remember sitting in church when I was little, and I was 7 or 8, and the minister, and this was a Methodist church, which is pretty loose, as the Christian faith goes. But talking about God and how angry he was, and I turned to Mom and I went, I don't think God gets angry, Mommy. Why do we have to be taught to fear the very thing we want to be in partnership with? Never made any sense to me.
I know from reading a little bit about you before you came here today, something I didn't know about you was that you got your teaching degree.
Yes.
And that was the University of Kansas.
Uh-huh.
I love that because you created the acting studio where you were a teacher, and now you teach spiritually. So there was something in you that knew that you wanted to go and gather this learning about being a teacher, or did you do that because you thought there was no other option?
I did that because my mother wanted me to have something to fall back on.
Of course, yeah. But isn't it interesting
But
how it's
I'm a born teacher.
I was going to say.
I'm just a born. I also had my own dance studio. I love. My heart just went. Pew. I just love the experience of seeing. I love the experience of helping others transform into their greatness. Whether it's dancing or acting or spiritual creation, it just makes me happy, Lee. You know, I'm a giver. I just love to give. Christmas, my kid laughs at me. I start getting ready for Christmas in January.
You do?
I do.
Well, that's brilliant.
I have a whole closet that's a Christmas closet so that I can buy special things for people when I find them.
Fantastic.
I love to offer specials at Christmas for my healing community, for people who can't afford to do the regular ones. You know, I just love to give, and isn't that what we do when we channel?
Yeah.
We give information. The information just comes through, and we go,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and
It's a
it
beautiful thing.
connects with other. I think there's something about the beauty of that connection that can come from giving and receiving.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
See, and I made up a word, recigive, because people think, well, I give and then I receive. But really, it happens at the same time, if you allow it.
Totally.
Receiving and giving is like a great hug. You both come in and you embrace each other at the same time, and you're both getting the experience of that love at the same time. That's what we're doing with the universe, is that recigive.
And you mentioned your daughter Gabrielle, and I know that she is also a writer.
Yes.
And
Best-selling writer.
fantastic. And tell me, like, what has, I mean, this is a big question, but perhaps just the first thing that comes to you. What has parenting offered you, given you, taught you?
Well, my God, where can you give more? Sorry. Where can you give more than when you have a child? You know, and it took me 6 years to get pregnant. Every specialist told me I would never have a baby. I said, thank you for sharing. God and I have a different plan. She jokes about it all the time. She said, Mom, there was 8 million souls up there. And finally it said, all right, I'll go. She's not going to give up. And we are best friends. We have been through so many tragedies together. Her dad died right before she was 6 years old. 7 years old, sorry. Her husband, we found out, had been having an affair with a 19-year-old very soon into their marriage. So she went through a nasty divorce. Later, she fell in love with this person. And, oh, I love you. You're the love of my life. You have to go travel Europe with me. 2 days before they were supposed to leave, he said, you know, I'm going to go by myself. And she looked at me and she said, you know, Mom, my greatest fear is being alone. So I'm going to go alone, which, of course, was my greatest fear. But I supported her, and then she journaled through her whole month's trip and the experience and how she found herself again and found her self-worth and moved back into self-love, which is the most important thing that we all can do, and wrote a book about it. And it's helping heal not only women, but women and men all over the world now. And I see a lot of my teachings because she can still recite the affirmations that we said every night as she was going to bed, you know. But she's taken them and put them in a very new age, new way that's a little more hip.
Beautiful. What is the book called?
Eat, Pray, #FML is the first one. And the second one is The Ridiculous Misadventures of a Single Girl. But you're going to want to read the first one first because the second one is a follow-up to everything that you want to know about from the first one.
Fantastic. And so she also is putting books out into the world like you. When did you know that you wanted to write or that you wanted to create
I
the
was
books?
told.
So it was a channeled thing for you.
It was, the channel said you have to write what you know about consciously creating your life.
And did you find it easy to kind of bring these books through? Or
I just get out of the way, Lee.
Great.
I get out of the way. The one that was most challenging for me was Bright Light. It's also one of my favorites. It's really a autobiography through all the big movies and big directors that I worked with and the spiritual lessons that I learned along the way. So I had to get comfortable going into the channel and then going into my more mental place, like, gosh, what year did I do that? And, you know, factual stuff. So it was an interesting combination for me of going back and forth and back and forth.
I have a feeling that book may have come out around the time we were both in Santa Fe. Was it a decade or so ago? That rings a bell.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Just kind of going back to movies for a second, it's funny talking to you, and I know the term screen queen is like a...
Bring it on, baby.
It's like a term. And
bring
I know
it
that
on. I love it.
You're one of the best out there for that. And I also know, I was just reading the other day, Jamie Lee Curtis and this Halloween franchise that got incredibly resurrected like a couple of years ago. And
well, it got resurrected because Rob Zombie did his inspired remake. It wasn't a remake of Halloween, it was a Rob-make, which I was in, fortunately. And that kind of resurrected the interest in Halloween again.
So you were in a prior Halloween movie, because there's been quite a few, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Rob's.
Okay.
Rob Zombie's Halloween.
What is it in us that loves these? Because I'm not really a horror fan, but I'm fascinated by the culture around it. And I've been reading some articles lately about Jamie talking about it. And there is such a movement around this kind of movie. What is it that you...
It heals you.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Go Google it. Google horror is good for you.
Yeah.
It decreases anxiety. It helps you learn to deal with fear in a safe place. It actually strengthens your DNA. There's all kinds of great things. I say jokingly, you know, I'm really in a public service business here doing horror films because, you know, and then I go do these beautiful little Hallmark Christmas movies and movies like E.T. But everything I do, you bring the essence of you in. And the essence of me is a teacher and a healer. I mean, I never looked at Cujo as a horror film. I looked at it as a tribute to every mother here. Sorry, and you wonder why I'm an actress. Every mother that goes to great lengths for her kid. I had a mother like that. I had a mother that defended us and worked long hours for us. And that's really why I became an actress, because my mother was a beautiful actress in Kansas City in local theater. And at church, I would watch her do these half-an-hour readings of, like, the crucifixion at Easter. And people would come from 4 states around to watch my mother. And I can remember sitting in the pew, and I was about eight years old, looking around, seeing all these grown men and women crying. And I went, oh, I want to do this. I want to move people like my mommy does, right? But I was born, I was just creating from the time I dropped out. And so was Gabby. I have a sonogram, and she's going like this in the sonogram. It's crazy. She laughs about it whenever I show her now. But, you know, you absolutely have an inclination. Call it past lives, call it reincarnation, whatever term, it doesn't really matter. We've all lived so many different experiences, you know.
Well, in creation and creativity is one of your masteries. So I love that you've created the book Born to help people with that, especially, you know, I'm always struck by how there are many different things people will say. Like they'll say, we teach what we most need to know, or we teach what we most know. I mean, it depends who you talk to as to that phrase. But I do think when you have someone like yourself who is a creative force, that's the kind of teacher you want to go to if you're having issues with creativity or creating in the world, because really they're, the way I see it, they're the same. You know,
Yeah,
creativity and creation are
absolutely
the same thing. So
absolutely.
I love that you told me before we started talking today that you wanted Born to be simple and accessible and grounded rather than complicated, which is often what we see out there in the world. So I love that was your mission.
You know, we have a belief that the more complicated it is, the more important it is. Where did that come from, do you think? You know, according to the good book, God said, and let there be light. Gee, that was complicated, you know? If we're made in the image and likeness of the greatest creative force, whatever your word is on there, the whole frickin' world was made in 7 days. How hard could it be? But you have to know. You have to go, I want to make a tree. I want to make a river. You know, I want to make a mountain hill. It's so many of us keep saying what we don't want and think that we're saying what we do want. But if I said to you when you approached me to do this, I said, well, you know, I don't want to talk about blah, blah, and I don't want to look like a fool, Lee, and I don't know if I want to come to the studio, and instead of just saying, oh my God, yes, how are we going to create this? But that's really what most of us are doing. You know, those of you that want to create a great relationship out there, most of us are going, well, I don't want a relationship like that other one.
It's true.
You know? Well, sure you don't, but so what do you want? If you know what you don't want, you got to take the next step and say what you do want. And then the universe can start playing with you. But the brain, your energy, and the universe doesn't know how to create I don't know. Even the computer, if you don't know what to put into it, it can't find your answer for you. Well, the universe is the same way.
And I know that you told me earlier that you're just over 600 weekly broadcasts that you do every Sunday where you teach the principles like this and many other things.
Well, and people can call in, ask any question they want of the channel.
So you've been doing that for 12 years now.
Yep, at least.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the book. And thank you for coming in today. And it's been just delightful to hear more and learn more. But before you go, I will ask you, Dee, what, if anything, do you want next?
Well, I want to do another really big movie. And I want, now you see, this is a great example, Lee. I want to eliminate the essential tremors that I have. So what I want is to create very steady hands. You see, my brother said to me, yeah, but it runs in the family. My grandfather had it, my mom had it, both my brothers had it. Now, with my work, I have been able to create it very minimally. I mean, you wouldn't even know that I have it.
No.
At all.
And I know people who have it, so
Yeah. So I don't want to say working on it, I'm playing with it. I'm playing with truly knowing, and this is a statement that came in just a few days ago when I was working on this. I said, what is the highest claim and direction that I can make to create steadiness in my hands? And the channel said, I am divine clarity. Now, you wouldn't think that would have anything to do with health, except if you're not clear that you are the creative force that creates your own health, how will you be able to create steady hands?
Beautiful.
Oh, it was. When they gave it to me, I got it like that.
Well, here's to steady hands and a lovely big movie, whatever big means for this context.
Yeah.
And thank you for being with us today, Dee.
Oh, it's been so much fun.
Yeah. And for everyone tuning in, listening, or watching, to learn all about Dee's work, you can go to iamdeewallace.com. And as ever, we will put links in the show notes and underneath the video, and also a link to Dee's book, which has just been released. It's called Born. Go grab yourselves a copy. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and see you next time on Impact the World. Hi, I'm Lee. I'm an intuitive, a channeler, a musician, and you may know me from my monthly free energy updates that go out on YouTube and Facebook. You may know me from the Impact the World podcast, but I wanted to introduce you to my members community, The Portal. We've been a community now for 8 years, and my mission and the mission of my team every single month is to bring you wellness content, metaphysical content, anything that's going to support your life as a sensitive, as a healer, as someone who is newly awakening, but also to ground it in reality. So every month we bring you various tools to help you survive, thrive, and expand your life. I know many of you are out there bringing your own special gift or light to the world. And the portal is a hub that we hold along with our community members to support you on your mission. Every month I do a live energy tune-up broadcast. It's 90 minutes long. It allows me to go deeper on some of the energies that month and how they are affecting our specific portal community. I also take Q&A. I answer questions from my intuitive standpoint, and I also answer questions from my guides, the Z's, who I channel. These live tune-ups are always available within 24 hours, so if you can't make it live, you will always have the replay to go back and watch again, or to use the timestamps to visit a specific question that you heard that you wanted to replay the answer for. Every month, we will bring you a brand new audio recording. I often keep our community at the top of my mind when I'm creating a new channeled MP3 or a new energy alchemy meditation. And these are always scored and supported by the music of sound healer Davor Bozik. I also do several private behind-the-scenes video diaries. Sometimes these are what we're creating and what's going on here at the studio, but other times it might just be me at home talking about things that I'm noticing, really designed to give you and I an intimate conversation that I wouldn't otherwise put out there into the wider world. Stephen Washington brings you a special body energy update every single month. So Stephen is my husband, and he is also an amazing Qigong and wellness teacher. So I asked him several years ago to start creating some body medicine for us. So he takes the themes of that month's energy update and he expands upon them and gives you a sequence of Qigong movements that are very gentle and easy for beginners, but it's a way of alchemizing what we're going through, and he does it beautifully. So many of our members love that component. Stephen also has many meditations inside the portal, which you can access anytime, and we are expanding our meditation library as these months go on. You receive a welcome bonus of the Intuitive Power live event. So if you've never seen a live event of ours, we had an incredible film crew document our London Intuitive Power event in 2019, and you'll get all 5 hours of that content as soon as you sign up. And finally, we curate special monthly Spotify playlists. 2 different kinds: music to move you, so things that are a little more dancey, and music to soothe you, things that are designed to help your nervous system calm. We love introducing you to new music, and this is curated by our whole team. The Classics Library is another important cornerstone of the portal. It gives us an opportunity to bring you 8 different MP3 recordings from my vast library, but we curate them as to the titles that might be perfect for you at this time. So if you want some extra audio, you can go into the Classics Library and pick a topic that suits you. Alongside several discounts to Portal members, our favorite thing is the energy of our community. So we have a private forum only available to members where you can share with each other, discuss, and learn from each other. So the portal really is a world unto itself, and it will keep expanding as the years go on. But there are some of our members who love every single aspect of the portal, and there are some who are there just for 2 or 3 things. So if you want to try it out for a month and see if it's for you, you can do that because membership is available to cancel anytime, and we look forward to welcoming you in the portal if you choose to experience what it is that we are curating and creating for you here.